Hi, and welcome to Love, Life, and Lies. I'm your host, Kevin Evans, and today we have the lovely Callie joining us. Callie is a good friend of mine who's been recently, I wouldn't say recently, but been married for about 6 years and has been reintroduced into the dating world for a little while. And I want to welcome her to the show. Welcome, Callie.
Thank you.
So, after a long marriage, I was reintroduced back in the dating world. And I hear terms like chase and pursue. And there definitely is a difference between the two. And a lot of people don't understand the difference between them. For example, chase is what puppies do. Puppies want affirmation. They chase around, a little scratch behind the ear. They want this positive affirmation. They want attention. Mm-hmm. Lions pursue. They have a focus. They're determined. They have a goal. And they're after. They don't hide who they are. So puppies want this love and this joy, where lions actually pursue. They don't change who they are. Everybody knows who they want. Nice guys chase, like the alphas and bad boys pursue. What's been your experience in that kind of arena? Do you agree with that? Do you agree with that philosophy?
I agree with that. What exactly? There's so many thoughts in my mind.
Don't give me one.
Yeah. When it just comes to men in general, or
well, I mean, women pursue women, guys pursue guys, women pursue guys. People that identify as trees pursue dogs, or people that identify as dogs. I don't know it these days, but
so you're just saying what my definition of the chase and
well, what
pursue
do you? So let me put it this way.
Okay.
So when a guy approaches you, and he's this overly nice guy, puts himself out there, puts you on a pedestal. And he always wants to be hearing this, oh, you're doing the right thing. You're a nice guy. He puts you on a pedestal. Okay. He's taking care of all your needs. He's buying you drinks, doing everything you want to do, nothing he wants to do. He's not making suggestions. It's always referring to you. Okay. That would be an example of chase. And those are the nice guys that get friend zoned, correct?
Yes.
So lions are the bad boys, the alphas, the players. They come after you, and they have this confidence. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that women like, is this perception of confidence.
Yes. Confidence is the number one.
And we'll talk about that in future episodes. But that's the difference with lions, lions and puppies. Lions pursue, puppies chase. Mm-hmm. And so when you get into that chase part, again, puppies, little kids, they're told bad dog, and they sit there and they cower. That's the example of a chase. So can you think back in your examples of where you've had these guys, they seem like really great guys, but they're too nice?
Yes. I have come across plenty, and it's unfortunate, actually, whenever you're initially attracted to one of these two nice men, and then they just start, I guess, simping is a word. Okay. And I guess you're wondering how my reaction is to that?
Yeah, so from your point of view as a woman, and you have these guys, because typically what I've seen is they become infatuated with a woman, and they literally will bow down to whatever they do. And it's kind of society today. We get a bunch of pussified guys.
Yes.
that don't have this independence. They're taught to be more, succumb to a woman's, or get in touch with their feminine feelings, be in touch with themselves.
Which works for some people.
It does work for some. Absolutely. And when I talk about things, I talk bell curve. This is not totally absolute. These are philosophies I've experienced back in the dating world after married for a very long time. And the world's changed since I've been reintroduced to it. Men have changed. Women have changed. Women have been taught to be more independent. Men are taught to be more in touch with their feelings. And when you get that, men are confused. But when you get in the dating world, as a woman's point of view, or perspective, I should say, when you have these guys that are a little confused, and they're good, solid individuals, they really are, but there's no pushback. There's no backbone. And that's where the chase comes in. They want this reaffirmation. And all of a sudden, what I've experienced is they get friend zoned.
Yes.
Because they're there. And then what happens is these guys get friend zoned very quickly. And then they're still at your beck and call. And then you're starting to date dudes. And they're interested. These friend zone guys.
All correct.
are interested in you, but now they become your friends, and you're sharing all your love horror stories with these guys. They go, wait, what about me? What about me? I'm all the things you want. And it's too late, right?
Yes.
Can you recover from the friend zone?
It's very hard to, but you can. Well, I have actually a perfect example of how you can.
Okay.
Kind of become the lion. Start. How do I explain it properly? So, girls always getting attention. Always getting attention for the most part. Most of them are just flooded with it, and so I guess that's why a lot of us go for the lions, because we want to chase a little bit too, I guess. And if it comes too easily to us, we get bored. At least I do anyway. But when it comes to what I was saying about the friend zone, I think the only way out of that is to just follow her lead on it. If she starts pulling back, he needs to start pulling back, and it's a game, I guess. And just
it's funny you
I'm
say.
trying to explain it better. It's a game.
Well,
at the end of the day,
everybody hates
when
the
it
term.
comes to getting out of the friend zone. Yes,
Right. I think it's almost impossible.
It's almost impossible.
You have to kind of be a dick at some point. You just have to. But it's funny you say a game. Everybody hates the term game, but it's a game and you got to play it.
Yep.
Now, playing the game doesn't mean that you're changing who you are at all. It just means there's certain disciplines that you have to follow. Don't change who your character is.
Of course.
Don't change your values. Don't change any of that. But you do have to pay attention to all the little things. How often you text? What do you say in text? Be disciplined about it.
And I think people see that as a bad thing a lot of times. And I don't see it as a bad thing just because, I don't know, maybe because I watched a lot of Animal Planet growing up. And I'm like, it's just a natural thing that happens, the game, even though it's, animals can't talk, but they still play the games. They still have to, chimps got to do their little things to show their dominance and try to get the females, and if that makes any sense.
Oh, absolutely. And that's where people get confused.
Yes.
People hate the word it's a game because it diminishes what it is. And it's a simplistic term. Let's be honest. It's just a simplistic term. It's nothing more than just a term.
Well, also, they don't want to admit that if there wasn't a game to it, you'd get bored very quickly. I feel like anyway, but I might be a little jaded.
Well, that comes into the subconscious. And it's funny. My experience has been the younger the woman, the more the game is being played at a higher level. Because guys are stupid. We just are.
Well, also younger women are just getting attention left and right, and they're feeling young in their hot little bodies, and they don't give a shit.
They don't. Well, what happens is they're still learning. They're still learning how to use their superpowers.
Yes.
But there's kryptonite out there too, so they're going to get hammered with that eventually. And they just have been hammered enough, and so they're still learning how that game is played.
Yes.
And it's something that I've learned is that, and there'll be a pushback on this one, I guarantee it. Women fuck who they want, guys fuck who they can. Men marry who they want, women marry who they can. That's a philosophy that I have. Again, it's not going to be popular, but I do believe that.
Well, women, I think I agree with you because I used to be married. That's why I laugh in agreement. Women just have this idea that marriage is the ending goal and that's where they'll find their happiness. And that's not true.
Well, it's sad.
It's sad to where they'll just settle a lot of times.
Well, I think on both sides, men and women do settle. And they get into this marriage because that is a goal. You're taught that you get married, you raise kids, and you retire drinking margaritas. And it's just not true.
Right.
And the thing is...
which that does happen.
Well, you had margaritas? You raise kids?
Yes. Not often enough, though, for people to have this crazy fantasy
well, it's
of it just...
Yeah, it is a fantasy. It says unicorn vision because that's what's sold out there. But the reality is it's not. There is no perfect relationship. It just does not exist. And once people understand that, they will approach life a little differently.
Yes.
Now, they should marry for happiness, but what is that? And now it's, are you willing to accept 95% perfection, 90% perfection, or 85%? And what does that 5, 10, and 15% look like? Meaning, okay, the person's leaving dirty dishes in the sink. It's kind of a minor thing. If there's a devil worshiper in one and a Christian, that's a pretty big swing right there. Okay, that's so and that's a very drastic example. But let's say the intimate relationships in the bedroom is not solid. Well, that's a heavy weight because that eventually will come into play in a relationship. Or one person is not making enough money and they say, oh, but he's a great person. I had a friend of mine who she ended up marrying a virgin.
Marrying who?
Marrying a virgin. A guy. The guy's
okay.
virgin. And she thought he had potential. And she thought he was going to grow and that it never parlayed out. And intimate relations was a big thing with her. It's like, well, the guy's only going to know what you teach him. And so.
Interesting.
So that's a big swing because eventually that's going to wear on you. But again, there's no perfect relationship. And you have to set your expectations right. But that's part of the game.
See, when I hear that story, I think that she thought she could transform this guy into
100%
whatever
true.
she wanted him to be, and that's an interesting one.
100% true. Yeah. But if you're a dude and a virgin at 23, it's kind of a red flag.
For sure.
Because to me, that says lack of confidence, and he did not have all those traits.
Mm-hmm.
So, but she swung from a previous relationship that was a little overboard. So now she swung the pendulum hard the other way and paid a price for that. You're in a marriage that's not happy. But again, part of that pursuit and chase, which side are you on, right?
Which side am I on?
No, I mean, in general, I think it depends on which side you're on.
Oh, okay.
Because women pursue as well. They're just more covert about it.
Yes. God, I just have so many thoughts on
Give me one.
That subject. Yeah.
Give me an example of where you became the pursuer.
When I became, that's what I was getting at. So humans change their minds all the time. And from my personal opinion, I am kind of a chaotic person. And depending on my moods and emotions, that's what I write off of. And I'm assuming a lot of other women are like that. And so happiness changes on a day-to-day basis, like what I think is happiness and what I don't and what I want to pursue. And that's where it gets a little complicated. But I'm sorry, what was your question?
No, when have you became a pursuer? So you're in a relationship and maybe that guy initially approached you, but you go, I really like this guy. And maybe he's pulled back and you became the pursuer when you were actually being pursued or chased.
When I became the pursuer, that's when I started coming on into myself a little bit. I was turning 20, 21, and I started feeling confident about myself and getting attention from men finally. And I went through the phase where I felt powerful, and I was like, all right, let me go see what I can do out there, right? And just every time I'd go out, I would just beeline the most interesting person in the room.
So you would approach guys?
Yes.
Okay.
It was fun.
It's fun. So when you do that to a guy, does his perception change?
I think men enjoy it when women do that in the right way. But I always use comedy. And I think that it's refreshing for men to have a woman pursue them.
It's definitely different.
Yes. How do you feel about being pursued?
It depends.
Okay.
I mean, it really depends. First of all, is there an attraction there? That's key. If there's an attraction, it's kind of cool. But then there's people that take it the other extreme too, where the woman is interested in you, but she expects you to pursue all the time. And there's no signs that she's providing to you that there's interest, or it's like, okay, I'm not meeting her friend. She's not inviting me over. She's, it's always up to me to make the plans and stuff. And some women are like that. They have these values that they're drilled in their head that the man must always pursue. And that's just not, you have to give some signs back.
Yes.
You just can't keep pounding away at that. And you can't expect the guy to be pounding away all the time. You have to at least give some signs. Make an invitation or make a suggestion, introduce them to their friends. Because if that's not happening, then it's probably not as serious and it could be a communication issue. But then you have to figure out what the person's really wanting. or is it interpreted? Are you just a boy toy on the side or girl toy on the side? There has to be some sort of signs paid back in order for the pursuit to continue.
Well, I think it just got confusing in recent years for everybody, I'm assuming. Just because for so long throughout history, it's been that way. Like the men pursues the women get married to the man who pursued her. They have kids, have their families. And there's a lot of secret things that went on, I'm sure, in their relationships. But once social media came out, I think that's what messed a lot of things up.
It's that way before that. It made things, there's a lot more static noise now for sure.
Yes.
But it started changing long before that. The message for men are getting pounded. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, there was definitely a dynamic shift. When you had women's rights, you had the abortion law. Women started getting their independence, burn the bras, all that stuff started happening. So the independence of women started to come out there.
And I might be a little jaded because I come from the country. With that being said, like that's just how, rednecks are raised.
But it was more of a national thing, maybe international, but mainly a national thing that started happening. So women became empowered, which I think is great because they should be treated as equals. But then they started pounding on the men too, kind of, okay, you need to be more in touch with your feminine feelings. So then there was this kind of dynamic shift where some women are still expecting the man to pursue, but then guys are chasing because they're confused. And some women are pursuing, but then they have this empowerment. It's like, I can get what I want, because any woman go to a bar and drink for free on a Friday night. They just can't, because guys are stupid, they'll buy drinks. And that's a topic for a future episode. But women always hold the initial key. And then what happens is once that relationship starts, the shift goes to the man most of the time. Mm-hmm. The women have the early control. And the woman wants that most of the time. Again, I'm speaking bell curve because there's going to be a lot of women going, no, that's not the case. I'm saying bell curve and from my observations. So these are my lenses. This is how I see things. This is what I've learned, okay? So it's not absolute, but it's just based off my experience. Mm-hmm. And there's probably studies there to back it up, but I don't read that much on studies. But what happens is women control the early control of a relationship most of the time. And then they literally want that to shift to the man. They want the man to be the protector most of the time, and to be the confidence. So then the man will gain control at some point later on. That's just been my experience. And that's where we get to the chase versus pursue. Mm-hmm. Because if a man or a man's pursuing a woman, he's got to focus and stuff. So there's the not control, but the protection aspect and the confidence aspect. And if they're too nice, they're going, this person probably doesn't have the ability to take control of the relationship later on. Yes. And I believe that that's what's happening.
I'm feeling very, very sad for men recently, just because I feel like they might be a little, just from my experience that I've noticed and just male friends of mine. So it's not bad to get in touch with their feminine side at all. I think that's a good thing because I feel like men have just always had to be the tough one. They can't show feelings. Like I love that. I love that men are finally able to show their softer sides. But it sucks because of the chase and pursue thing. It makes them look weak.
Well, it's showing it too early. The thing is, there's a time to do that. There's a time not to do it. You don't want to cry on a first date if you're a dude. You're done.
Yeah.
And a lot of dudes will do that too, especially on the online dating scene. If they've been dumped, I've heard so many women tell these horror stories that they go on this date. It sounds great on the phone. And the guy just complains about his ex-wife and breaks down in tears. They go, what the hell did I get into? And it happens a lot, especially with the older folks. That's what's happening. Oh. And so these guys are just so butthurt, and they think that now I'm going to get in touch with my feminine side. They'll be caring. It's like people don't want to see that on a first date.
No.
They want to know who you are. They don't want to know. They don't want you to break down in tears and stuff.
Oh, no.
And it's okay. So men are taught to keep their emotions in check. You don't do it publicly. That's why the difference between men and women is women will never trash each other out in public. They'll stab each other in the back in private. But
a lot of them do, yes.
But a dude they'll pound each other in public and just insult them and stuff. And that's because that's a sign of confidence. That's just what dudes do. Women don't do that. And so there's a different side. So women tend to be more emotional and men tend to be more not factual, but more logical based. And they'll hide that stuff. They'll have some of the similar feelings, but they're taught not to show those. They're always taught to be the warriors, the strong, and that's what's happening. So if you do that too soon, but now there's a shift in that, and now people tend to chase more, and that's where the puppy dog thing comes in. The nice guys are screwed. And because they're being taught that that's what you're supposed to be, but women don't want that anymore. They don't want that initially.
Initially, yes.
They don't want to be put on a pedestal. They want to be romanced, but not, they don't want to be put on a pedestal. That's a big difference.
Well, that's where it gets confusing because, okay, just again, from my personal opinion, always, after going through so many of those men that are just end up as assholes and, emotionally unavailable because that's their game. They're the lions. And then as soon as they get you, usually, they're kind of done. And they're off to the next person.
Well, they're not.
I've noticed.
They're not lions. Those are players. They're false alphas. They're just into the game.
Oh, I thought...
Yes.
Okay.
They know how to play the game. It's a body count issue with them.
Okay.
So they appear... They are lions. However, they're not in for long-term relationships. That's a different animal.
Oh.
Yeah,
okay.
so basically they're out there to just like, they want to kill the gazelle, not even kill it, just take down the gazelle and leave it alone.
Oh.
They just want to chase the gazelle, knock it down. They're on the next gazelle.
What should we call them then?
False alphas. Players.
False alphas.
Players.
Yeah, kind of like the animal.
They like the game. They're just into the game. They're not into finding a relationship. They're just into the game. And a lot of women fall for that because they know all the right moves. They know how to play the game very well. They come across as confident, feel protective. They know the game, but they don't have the second tier to get into the relationship. They're first tier guys. They have no depth. They don't have a relationship. And women fall for that all the time.
What are the clowns of the animal world?
Hyenas.
All right, they're hyenas then.
Hyenas are kind of vicious, though. Those little bastards are tricky.
Okay, so those are hyenas. Whole different category?
They're chameleons. How's that?
Chameleons?
Chameleons that hunt. How's that?
Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking when you said lions, it was the players.
They're like angry bees. How's that?
Okay.
There's bees. They sting you one time, they move on.
Okay.
They travel in herds too, or whatever they call bees.
So so when you're referring to a lion, you're saying somebody who actually wants to be with somebody?
No, it's just a perception of hunting.
Okay.
Hunting. So it's when you're, again, puppies chase. I mean, you got pit bulls. Pit bulls are good puppies, but then they turn into angry little bastards, right? But again, lions, in general context of example, lions pursue, and that's what the false alphas come into. And that's a whole nother episode. So in the future episode, we're going to talk about why men are pigs, and that's part of it.
Women are pigs?
No, men are pigs.
Oh, men are pigs.
Women are just messed up.
Women can be pigs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely can. But that's, again. So the other part in the chase pursuit, you get in this relationship, things are clicking. And also there's the pullback. The pullback is always the dangerous part. This is where relationships F up.
Yes.
And it always happens. Usually, it might be the 90-day mark. It depends how intense the relationship is going. So the pullback period crushes a lot of relationships. And it can be for a lot of reasons. And I'll speak from the male perspective. So what happens is things are clicking. You got this good vibe. There is definitely a pattern of behavior. And all of a sudden, there's a dynamic shift in that behavior.
Yes.
The texts slow way down or aren't responded to. They're less committed to making plans. The answers on text are shorter. They make themselves less available to talk. And there's this immense pullback.
Yes.
And then what happens is the guy's all confused, like, what the hell just happened here? Something happened and I don't know what it is. And in my experience, it's been for a number of reasons. It can be like the woman just likes playing the game. It could be somebody else caught her eye. It could be she's losing or feeling like she's losing her independence. She's afraid it's moving too fast and has lost herself in the relationship. Or she's just relationship avoidance. It could be any number of those. And you've done it. I guarantee you've probably done it.
Oh, for sure.
And so...
For sure. I think all of those.
Am I wrong in any of that?
No. I don't think you are.
So, from the male perspective...
It gets complicated for sure.
It does, because there's no simple solution to that.
Yes. And
what happens in that, from a male perspective, is when that pullback occurs, we're trying to figure out what happened. And all we want to do is talk and say, okay, can you explain what's going on here? And what happens, though, is the male then will start pushing, to want answers, and that causes the other person to pull back further.
Are we talking about somebody who's committed to a relationship or somebody who's in the talking stage?
No, this is somebody who's been dating and things are clicking. Maybe you've hooked up. Maybe you've slept together. Maybe you're dating for 90 days. It's somewhere there's already some sort of chemistry. Commitment. There's some chemistry and some momentum built up.
Okay, so I think there's a difference between if a man and woman actually commits to a relationship or is just in the talking stage.
Well, when are you talking? I mean, what do you mean by talking?
Well, if it's not official, then I feel like I feel like, in my opinion, it's okay to just kind of let it go.
Well, if you're just talking, yeah. But I'm talking, first of all, there should be no official unless you're married. Because what I mean by that is you'd say, are we boyfriend and girlfriend? There should be no labels. It just happens. You just move into that. You know, if somebody has to define it, like, are we exclusive? If you're asking that question, I'd have to label it. It just should naturally occur. There's too much pressure when that happens, in my opinion.
So I think that the labels are good just to know that that's your person now. And because of I don't know, in my personal opinion, just because of the way social media is and how easy it is to go and find the next guy or girl, I think, because I will never, I don't plan on getting married again. But I do believe in still being committed to one person.
Right.
If you want to, you know. With that being said, that's where I kind of have
but I've heard people go like, ask the other person, are we boyfriend and girlfriend? That's what I'm talking about. Now, if you call someone your boyfriend, it naturally occurred. That's fine. I'm saying you don't say, so will you be my girlfriend? That's junior high shit. You know what I'm saying? When you say, will you be my girlfriend? It's that is 40s and 50s stuff. Yeah. But people still do that. Which I'm like, really? I'm confused by that one. But you call them your boyfriend or girlfriend. Oh, then that's acceptable. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
I'm saying when you ask somebody, will you be my boyfriend or will you be my girlfriend? So when I'm talking dating, I'm talking dating, however period that is. Not maybe you're considered boyfriend and girlfriend. You're seeing, let's put it this way, you're seeing each other for some period of time that there is momentum built up in a relationship that's clear that there's interest on both sides. Okay. And then there's a dynamic shift.
Okay. I feel like the dynamic shift happens a lot whenever they become official and the chase stops. And then there's nothing else to, I don't know, they kind of get bored, I guess.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's one of the possibilities. And it could be, well, that's official, but it's dating where there's momentum build up. Okay. Meaning that, okay, we've been seeing each other for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is. We're out together. We're going dinner.
Still fresh.
We're hanging, out the weekends together, and we're talking all the time. So no labels have to be attached to that part. It could be 4 months that you guys are together, 3 months. It's usually around the 90-day mark that shit usually starts going sideways because the newness is off. You're getting into a rhythm, and that's
learning
where the
each other's
shift,
real selves,
right?
Real sides of, or all of them. What am I trying to say? All sides of them, I should say, and not just their best sides.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. There's a dynamic shift. And what happens is there's a pullback. Mm-hmm. And that's where they go sideways. I'm just talking from the male's perspective. When a woman does that, and you're going, okay, what happened? You just notice it, and they don't want to be called out on it. Oh, nothing's wrong. It's always nothing's wrong.
Really?
I'm going, yeah, there is. I'm thinking this in my head. I go, I'm going to play that game. Okay. Because it's the pullback period. So now I've even gone as far as like, let's see if they'll call me. And we're talking some great dates and seeing each other a lot. And all of a sudden, okay, she's not responding or it's taking her day. I'm not going to send a text to see what happens. And there's no response for 2 weeks, nothing. Now you know it's sideways. Without a question, if somebody's not calling sideways, because somebody who's interested in you will make an effort.
Yes.
Or they're going to say, wow, I haven't talked to you in a while. What's up? And if they're not, you might as well just kiss goodbye at that point.
That's true.
Because now you're playing the game back. where, okay, you're pulling back, I'm going to pull back too.
Yes.
And if they're not responding, it's done.
Yes,
And,
I agree.
But at least give the courtesy to tell the other person why.
I agree with that. I do agree. And I haven't actually, okay, so I've had quite a few flings, I'll call them. And a lot of times they have just fallen off and like nobody had to say anything. We both kind of got the message, whatever. But me personally, if they ask me, if they're not freaking weirdos and they're not like creeping me out or just like, if they're like good guys or whatever and they ask me, hey, like, what's up? I'll be honest with them personally. And it just depends on my situation. If I felt like we weren't connecting,
right.
Usually it's just connecting on one level. And then I'm noticing that I'm not connecting with them on other ones. Like that's usually mine. And then they think that, one level is fine. And I'm like, no, it's just, it's like an onion. I need some more layers to my man.
And that's, and
if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's respectable to do that.
Yes.
But what happens is, because of today's society where they are, it's just too easy to ghost people and write them off. And I think that creates two victims. First of all, the one person blowing them off is not learning how to do conflict resolution. They don't have any guts because they're not held accountable.
It's bullshit, to be honest. I don't like it. It's happened to me.
Yeah, karma's a bitch.
Like
it will come back. And they go, what happened?
Just block me or something. And I'm going like, whoa, what just happened there? Like, I've been the person on the other side where I'm like...
It sucks, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah, and then the other person wants to know what happened. Because is it something they did? Is it something that's not there that they need to better themselves? Because...
And then it transformed me in a lot of ways. Like, whenever... I'll call them boys. I don't think men do this. But when boys do this, it turns me kind of into a bitch. Like, towards... my attitude towards it. I'm like, well, fuck them then. Instead of like, we could have just had one conversation and then could have grown. Right. And then it just creates this like toxic freaking feeling towards the opposite sex. I feel like. Yeah,
well, it perpetuates this feeling of either online dating or dating in general. That's why it sucks, because people, especially today, don't want to be held accountable. And then when they're held accountable, they get pissed off, and then they take it out on the other person. They're like, wait a minute, if you just would have had this conversation.
Yes.
And own your shit. Like, if it's something you did, own it. And that's fine. Nobody wants to do that anymore.
Well, a couple thoughts on that. So whenever you're in a relationship with somebody, I can understand, like, getting pissed off and, like, not wanting to take accountability and coming back around, right, and apologizing. But in the very beginning stages, when you're first meeting somebody, I find it very weird that you can't just communicate without it getting weird. Because I think when it comes to the accountability parts, and when you're actually in a relationship, there's a lot more emotions that go into it just because you're investing in this person, right? But in the talking stage, it's very strange to me that people can't just be straight up.
Right. But again, talking stage, and I'm talking whether dating has occurred. Talking stage, no. All right. It just kind of goes sideways and you just move on. But if you've been on dates and maybe had intimate relationships and stuff like that and seeing each other, that's where it's like, okay, I've earned that respect at least.
Yes. And
you'd be shocked at how many women especially don't. Especially the younger the women go, the more they have this FU attitude that they just, my shit doesn't stink. And you know what? When they grow and they get punched in the face enough times, they're going to learn that you ain't all that, sister, because those looks go down fast.
Oh, yeah.
And then they don't have that anymore. And guys will play you too. So at least learn the conflict resolution skills.
I think that I went through that, though. I don't actually hate on girls for going through that stage. Because they're coming into their bodies, they're out of high school, they're coming into the world, they're 21, they can drink and experience, they're feeling sexy, whatever. And like, but also they're still very young mentally. They're finally getting all this attention. They're on their own. They don't have their parental supervision. Like, and from my personal opinion, I was there. I was that person that was like, fuck it.
Doesn't make it right though.
Doesn't make it right.
And it's like,
but it's a maturity thing.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. By blowing people off, you're not learning conflict resolution skills. That's my whole point there.
And I'm trying to like figure out when because I guess I did go through a phase where I didn't care when I was getting a lot of attention.
Right.
Yeah.
And then because it's a numbers game. Because again, women will get things thrown at them all the time. But they're not learning from that point. It's like, why treat a guy like shit? It's like, if somebody's been a good person to you, don't burn him. Because what happens is you don't know what they have later on to offer. Even if you maintain a cordial relationship, you don't burn them because there's some well-connected people out there that haven't played all their cards yet. And you just you fucked yourself over on that one. And I've seen it a number of times.
And I think that's a maturity thing and just a growing up process because I've been there. And then it took me growing up to realize that not all men were either pieces of shit or just to be...
Well, we are, just different levels, to be honest with you.
Well, so are girls, but that's a whole different subject, right? But I don't know. I feel like I got to a point where people are people.
Right.
It's like, it's not about the freaking opposite sex. Who cares? Like, you don't have to be mean to a man for no reason.
Yeah, and that goes
chill.
Right, and that goes across all fronts, of course. Again, in this context here, just treat people like human beings.
Yes.
I'll do that. I'll be respectful for when they go, well, what happened? I'll tell you exactly what exactly happened. And usually I'll break it off and say, hey, look, this is a situation. I just don't feel it's the right fit for these reasons because they deserve that. If you put in time and invested some time and maybe some emotions, then they deserve that.
I agree.
And whether it's a stage or not, it happens. And that's the whole point. It's part of the game. Whether the reasoning doesn't matter. It just happens. It's part of the game. And you have to play it. And that's what I'm saying. The pullback period is the toughest one because it can be for a number of reasons. And if it's for
so many reasons.
Well, but if it's one of the reasons that's like, okay, they've lost their independence, then they'll come back around to you. Like if you pull back a little bit, they'll say, hey, I've been talking to you in a while. What's going on?
That does work a lot.
Yeah.
If they pull back a little bit and the girl comes back.
Yeah, exactly. But if they don't, just it's done.
Let it go.
Because they'll always rationalize, no, there's nothing wrong. I've gotten busy. These are the excuses you'll hear. And then I've sat back and watched. And it's like, and then they post this shit on Instagram. It's like, guys, if you're going to do this and blow it off and you're on doing something else, you fucked up.
That's where I get a little jaded with like how it just depends on the guy. Because I've done that before. Hold on, I gotta burp 1 second. My apologies. So I've done that before where I'm just like trying to let them go easily. But sometimes, so it either depends if I think they're too nice and I just don't want to hurt their feelings, or if I think they're a little creepy and I get kind of like nervous about it. It's either one or the other. Like it's either I'm trying not to hurt feelings or I'm kind of like scared a little of their reaction, you know?
The scared one's a whole different version. But if they hurt their feelings, like, sorry, love sucks sometimes. And you hurt their feelings, they need to toughen up a little bit too. So you can be direct with them. You don't need to be an asshole about it. But you can say, hey, look, this isn't working out for these reasons. That's how they're going to grow.
I feel like a few times when I've done that, and it's, I don't know, a few guys have not responded well to the honesty either, and then they get aggressive. Like there's been a couple of those.
Like, give me an example.
So, well, I guess a perfect example is like through Facebook messages, and they're trying to get to know you. You kind of know them. You saw them a couple times out in public, and just keep writing you, and you're like, you finally respond, and you're like, oh, not interested. Like I have messages in my Facebook, and then they get aggressive really quickly. Like all of a sudden, they're very nice. Like they're very nice, and then all of a sudden, like get very aggressive as soon as whenever I tell them. It's very honest. I'm not rude about it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's just, I don't know, they like take it weird. And so it's made me respond to other men differently, if that makes sense.
Well, then you just block them. That's easy. But if you haven't dated them, you just saw them. It's like, okay, what's the deal? It's like I've seen this too with guys. The guys at bars will buy these, drinks for these women and tell them how beautiful they are. Oh my God, you're the greatest. And they go, well, I'm not interested. Oh, you're just a dirty whore. Mm-hmm. They switch gears like that. Really? Because 10 minutes ago, she was the best thing in the world. And that just blows my mind. Guys are
That's
just
a better example
stupid that
than
way.
what I used for sure.
Yeah, that's just stupid.
It puts girls, at least me, it makes you feel a little like scared of men, how quickly some of them can just switch up on you. Honestly.
Some of them can. Women can too. I mean, they're stalking women. They're stalking dudes.
True.
There's just human beings out there that are bad human beings. And they just don't have the mental facilities to deal with rejection, or they don't have mental facilities that can handle normal life. That's just the way it is. It's going to go out. You can be walking down the street and all of a sudden, boom, you're mugged. There's just bad people out there who do bad things. And there's just assholes out there. There just are. And there's no way there's no way to avoid that. And it's on both sides. Trust me, I've run into my number of share of women that are just like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I've heard stories, women are just stalkers off the charts too. And then guys are too, and it's scary what people are capable of doing when they're rejected. And those are not mentally stable people anyways. Imagine if you were in a relationship with those people, like a long-term marriage or something. That's where things can get really creepy. So, but the chase and pursuit, there's nothing more exhilarating than the pursuit.
It's the adrenaline rush.
But with that said, that's the easy part. The hard part is building a long-term relationship, working at it, investing, communicating, and growing as a couple. That's the work. And some people are just afraid of that because, the exhilaration is gone and I'm just going to can it.
It's a lot.
And so I think a lot of good potential relationships just go by the wayside because people are more interested in playing the game than they really are finding a relationship. They say they want a relationship, but then they get spooked too easy, or they want to reject before they get rejected. So that happens too. There's this fear of fear avoidance or whatever.
Also, they have to face themselves too if they want to start building a relationship with somebody.
Got to love yourself first.
That one's hard. A lot of people don't realize how much they have to work on until they try to work it with somebody else.
Right. And that's the point that I was trying to make earlier, is that when you tell a person if it's a legitimate reason why, then they can grow.
Yes.
They can work on themselves.
As long as they're not being psychos.
Right. And there's one woman, I think she listens to the podcast. I don't think she was ready for a relationship. Just got out of a relationship. And the reason, because what I'll do is I'll go back to a woman sometimes after a period of time and say, hey, look, it's been a while since, we haven't dated. Can you share with me some of the reasons? Because I am trying to grow. I want to find out what those reasons are. And I try to put the pieces together to see if it's, okay, this just wasn't a fit. Was I reading the signs wrong? Was it on me? Was this person not ready for a relationship? Did something else happen in her life? Did she find somebody else? I mean, all those are acceptable reasons. I just want to know because I just like finality and stuff. I'd rather keep cordial relationships after that because I tend to try to look for good in people in general, which is a downfall of mine. It's a weakness. But,
I don't think so.
Yeah, trust me. It's a double-edged sword.
Yes.
It's a double-edged sword.
I will agree,
It's a very sharp double-edged sword.
I don't think it's a weakness, though.
But I want to know because I want to grow. And there are things that just don't make sense. Sometimes you're like, those reasons don't make sense. And then, okay, you just weren't ready. That's cool. Or they weren't being honest. And there are a lot of people out there dating that just aren't ready for a long-term relationship. They're just not. They're still finding themselves. They want to grow as their individual. They want to be independent, whatever it is. And they're just not ready. And that's cool too. You just got to say that.
Yes.
And if somebody's going to get butthurt over that, that's on them.
That is true.
And you can't control that. You cannot control what other people do or think. You can only control your reaction to it.
And I'm wondering, now that we've been discussing it, if people aren't as honest with those, or aren't honest because they are scared of them ending up being psycho on them or something.
No, I think most people aren't honest with themselves. I really think the biggest reason is they're not honest with themselves. And so they'll make up things to say in order to make themselves feel good, and they'll put it on the other person.
Okay, yeah. I'm pretty honest with myself, so I haven't really thought about it like that. That makes sense as well.
But a lot of people, yeah, I think that's the case in a lot of people. A lot of people want to play the victim because that's what's being pumped up there. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. And they have a bad And they actually have a bad support group around them too. It's like, oh, you poor dear. Yeah, screw him. I've seen that.
Birds of a feather flock together.
Especially the neighborhood I live in here. It's like, oh my God, they would just throw the man on the bus. If there's a divorce, you're getting the playbook run on. I can tell you what the playbook is. And I've seen it over and over and over again. Oh, you poor woman, he's just a piece of shit. It happens all the time. And they make up things in their head to make themselves feel better.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
And it's okay sometimes, but at the end of the day, it's like, come on, be honest with yourself now.
Absolutely. So
like, it's okay to vent and like have some emotion sometimes, but come on now.
Venting's great.
Get it together.
Venting's great. Just don't make excuses and be honest with yourself.
Yes.
And so if I have any advice for people, first of all, be honest with yourself.
It's been a horrible thing happening recently too, right? In society, just victimization.
It's just growing. It's getting worse. You know what? Rise above it. The more we perpetuate it, the more we fall into that, we perpetuate it.
Yeah.
So first of all, be honest with yourself. Number two, just don't ghost people. At least, unless they're
be offended.
Axe murderers. Although serial killers always start with the first one, just be honest.
Wait, which one?
Serial killers.
No. What are they?
They always have to start with the first victim, right?
Oh.
Sorry. I know. That went a weird way. First of all, just be honest with yourself. Number two, just don't ghost. If it's not going to work out, just be honest, because you're going to deal with conflict resolution. It's going to teach you how to do it. And you're going to help the other person, hopefully. And if they can't take it, well, that's on them, not you. Invest in therapy then, or have them invest in therapy. Right. But also enjoy it. It's part of a process. It is part of the process, and it's not going to work for everybody. You're not going to, everyone you date, that's what dating is for, to determine who's good for you for the long term.
That's true.
But there's just that first tier, and that's the key is women want, they want confidence, they want to feel protected, a sense of humor. Understand that's just the first cut. You get in relationships, there's a second, and third, and fourth level there that you get into. And
it takes so much self-reflecting to even get to the point that you just said.
It does, because honest with yourself is first. Mm-hmm. So anyways, thank you so much for joining us today.
Of course. Thank you for the invite.
Well, again, thank you for joining us today on Love, Life, and Lies. And remember, live life and enjoy life. I'm your host, Kevin Evans. Take care.
Yeah.